back to Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. I'm Dan Bucknell, and here we talk about the world of immersive technologies aimed at creating a more meaningful and emotional experience for music, film, and just about everything else. Today's guest is Tony Joy from Sound Particles, taking us through his journey into the industry and all about Sound Particles' incredible plugins. Thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you, Dan, for having me. It's such an absolute honor to be on the podcast. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. So kind of wanted to go a little bit into, everything that sort of brought you to today, your entire journey through sound and music and all the areas that you've sort of worked in, and then obviously the Sound Particles discussion. That's going to be a big one. So I'm very keen to hear, exactly like what sort of process you went through to get to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I am originally from India, from South India, from a state called Kerala. And since I was a kid, I was not great at studies in school academically. I was an average student. I was always passionate about music. So I got into playing keyboards in the school band, and that became a passion. And at one point in my life, I was like, that's who I want to be. And then, of course, I meet amazing musicians. Then I realize, whoops, I'm not as great as I thought I was to make a living out of it. So I took a change in direction with my career plan. So I did a diploma in sound engineering from SAE, which is actually an Australian-based school. So I did that back in India, and as soon as I graduated, I was very lucky enough to find a job in Dubai, Internet City at the time, and I was making ringtones, which was quite fashionable at the time. So I made about, I think, maybe 6,000 ringtones in a matter of 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun. So I was making MIDI ringtones for global brands, all the major carriers worldwide for devices on Nokia and Sony Ericsson, Kyocera, you name it. I was doing it. I was at the time also making haptic ringtones, right? Now, of course, haptics is a thing, but I'm proud to say that back in the day, this was 2003, we were making ringtones where if you had a Motorola or a Nokia phone, specific devices at the time, we could actually program MIDI notes to play the vibration motor inside the device itself, so you could actually feel the bass line.
I think I remember that. That's super cool.
So that's how I started my journey. Then, of course, I worked for a while doing that. Then I quit the job, went to the UK to do a master's in sound design in Bournemouth University, graduated, went back to India. I was very fortunate to work for some of the leading engineers in India, H. Sridhar and Shivakumar sir, both of them are amazing mentors. And that association continued for a while. I was working for Mr. A.R. Rahman's commercial studio at the time. Then I went back to Dubai a short while later. I became a radio producer for two radio stations in Dubai, Radio 1 and Radio 2 at the time. Did that for a short while. Then again, hit the reset button, relocated to the US, moved to LA. My association with the composer A.R. Rahman from India continued, and I actually built his studio in LA. It was part of his house. We pretty much turned his dining room into a studio.
That's awesome.
Which was 5-1. And then I managed it for many years. I was very fortunate to be his scoring mixer and engineer for pretty much all of the movies we did in LA. So I did about a little over 24 movies, I believe, over the years. That was done more than often, I would say 95% of the time in that one specific studio. But of course, we've scored at Warner Brothers and Fox stages to record big orchestras. The bigger projects we did, we actually have had engineers like Alan Myers and Joe Livataki be the lead engineer for that. So I was not recording the orchestra myself, but I have done that back in India. I also recorded lots of vocals, guitars, and other things in the studio I was managing. So it was always a teamwork, right? So I would be doing lots of the pre-dubs in the studio or recording guitars and vocals while we have stems being sent to Alan or whoever's recording orchestra at the stage. So I did that. I was primarily mixing in Euphonic System 5 at the time, which had been purchased by Avid. And of course, being a Logic Pro and a Pro Tools user for a long time by then, I was very fortunate enough to join Avid because I was always passionate about spatial music workflows. So I joined Avid as the person in Los Angeles. I was helping Avid's audio portfolio, where I was helping create new music centric workflows where you actually create and mix in spatial. During that time, I had discovered Nuno Fonseca, the CEO of Sound Particles, and I became an instant fan. And when the opportunity came along, I joined Sound Particles about 3 years ago, and that's my journey.
That's incredible. Wow, what a huge journey. And interesting that you bring up Alan because yeah, so one of the reasons that and how I sort of got on in touch with you was through his workshop on Dune 2 soundtrack, if you remember, not too long ago, which you were hosting. And that was very, very exciting and awesome to watch. So yeah, he's an absolute legend. When you moved to LA, were a lot of the clients that you were working with already based in LA?
No, it was a very risky, almost a stupid move that I did. I did not know anyone,
Really?
but at the same time, I knew this was a town to be in if I wanted to break into the industry. And it did take a long time. I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat that. It took many years because just like, when you move to any new country, it takes time. There's, of course, my accent and my cultural background, but then there's also other subtle but slightly different socio-economic factors that come into play. A good example, I was not huge into networking or meeting with people, right? I was always like, oh, I know this person, this is what I'm doing, that's all I need to do. But LA
Right.
is completely different. Of course, it's a good opportunity. So I had to come out of my shell and talk to people and network. So that's only one of those aspects, right? Even the way you think about recording something is different. Like you can take the same instrument, like electric guitar, and you can give it to someone from the US and you can give it to someone from South India. And the way they play the instrument is 180 degrees different, and you don't approach things sonically the same way. Even loudness is a different thing.
Really? How is loudness different?
The Indian way of mix or the Bollywood style is sonically different. Again, if you watch either of these any movies from two different worlds, you will immediately sense that. Now it's becoming much more seamless. Of course, there's international standards, and if you're making a movie, it doesn't matter where. If you want to publish it to Netflix, now there's global standards. But 10, 15 years ago, that did not exist. Right. So,
Right.
as a good example, our masters used to be much hotter. Like if we're mixing, if I had my colleagues in India, or if I was mixing in India at the time, I'm not saying now, things have changed for the better. But
Yes.
loudness war was absolutely a thing, and everything was literally on your face. And this could be controversial, but my observation is that you mix for the environment and the world you live in or where you consume, right?
That
So,
makes sense.
right in India, again, things have changed. I'm talking 10, 15 years before. Maybe it's very much the same in some parts of India. The environment is loud, right? Your means of public transportation is usually rickshaws or tuk-tuks, as some people would call them, right? They don't have windows, the motors are very loud, and this is where music is often consumed a lot. So, as a mix engineer, consciously or subconsciously, you're mixing for that environment.
Yeah, I can see how that could sort of affect your mindset on that and how you do what you do. Yeah, for sure.
Coming back to your question, when I moved to LA, there were sensibilities that would work in Dubai or work in India that might not work in LA or in London or in South Africa, right?
Right.
So that was a learning curve. Again, it helped me evolve, right? So I'm just grateful that I could be here. But to answer your question, I moved to LA wanting to break into this industry and learn more so I could contribute to the industry even more.
And you definitely have, and that's really really incredible.
Thank you.
When you did move to LA, how long did it take before the Avid adventure sort of began for you?
That was almost 8.5 years later.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so a long time. Is that where were you making all those movies and working with the mixing and the scoring stuff?
Yes. Yeah. I also worked part time in retail. So I was actually working at an Apple store part time.
Oh,
Uh,
there you go. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, because it actually helped me get my creative block away. Like when I was mixing hours on end, day after day, I was doing more damage. The mixes were sounding worse and worse. But if I took a break and went to the store and talked to some customers who had amazing questions or silly questions, I did not have time to think about my mix. So when I went back next day, I had no creative block and I had a newer perspective.
That objectivity comes back right when you've had a break. That's really important and a huge part of my workflow as well. Um, Interestingly, all of those things, even though they're very different and huge landscape changes and all of that stuff, it sounds like all of that would have absolutely helped. Like even the Apple stuff, like I mean, we use Apple products every day to do what we do, and
Hmm.
it's sort of not as you don't have to use Apple anymore. But certainly for a while there, for example, Dolby Atmos was not even possible on a Windows computer unless you had like a separate computer and things like that. Like there was limitations with all of this. So did any of that overlap? Just doing work with Apple and understanding all their products and things. Did that translate into your work in audio?
100%. I would say it was mutually beneficial, right? When Apple hired me, at the time, I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but there was a joke, but it was not a joke, it was a fact that it was easier to get into Harvard than to get into an Apple Store gig because so many people apply, right? Again, I could be wrong, but I think if my memory serves right, for that one pool we were in, there were about 600 people and eight of us were hired or something like that. Like the
Wow.
ratio was insane. And one of the reasons why I got hired was not because I was an Apple expert or anything. Fun fact, I had only seen a first Apple machine just 4 years before I got that job. So it's not like I grew up with Apple products or anything, right? The reason why I got the gig was because I was good at figuring things out. And of course, I had the musical background. And so that was what I was bringing to the Apple store as an experience, right? That's what made me unique. If someone had questions about Logic workflow or iWeb at the time to create websites and whatnot, I was the go to guy. We had someone similar to go to for Final Cut Pro. So, a few things I learned back. So, what I got back from Apple was a few things. One, if you don't know something, always say, I don't know, but I'll find out. That's important, right? Especially in a studio. Like if I don't know how to figure something out, I tell them, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And that helped me a lot. That's one thing I've been complimented a lot in a studio setting because I don't bluff. I mean, again, I'm not perfect, but I do make a conscious effort not to say that I know something if I don't.
Yeah, I love that approach.
Thank you.
I guess in any workspace, but particularly with very technical workflows that we do tend to work with, we're always learning with this stuff. There's so many new things coming out all the time as well. But yeah, like that sort of mentality. That's like a good work ethic, I think, in general.
Right. And the second thing I learned working at Apple, I cannot remember if they taught me this or if I kind of picked it up from the time there is Apple does not sell you anything, right? So even as a salesperson, I was never pressured to sell an iPhone to you or a MacBook Pro. In fact, one of the angriest customers I ever had, and I got complimented by my manager for it. The customer was angry because that person asked me to give them the most expensive course with the Mac Pro, right? So I believe it was 12 cores at the time. And
Right.
that person was like, but IBM makes 25 cores. And I was like, what are you going to use this machine for? That's not relevant. I want a machine with 25 cores. Why can't Apple make it? I said, this is the only one we make. It's only 12 cores, but you said there's a 25 core machine from IBM. Maybe that's the best machine for you, right? And the customer was like, but you work at Apple, you're supposed to sell it. Your manager won't be happy. Let me talk to him or her. And my manager said, no, that's the right answer. You seem to have found the right product. We don't sell it, but that's okay. You need the right product. So the point that I learned is that you don't have to, technology is great, like iPhones or MacBook Pros. But the important thing is once that coolness wears off, it's an instrument to create art.
Yes.
Right. So that's one thing I really took to heart so much that in my career as a music engineer, I became known as the invisible music engineer. Meaning, if I'm in the studio, I make the studio and myself invisible. Yes, I talk a lot, but there's times when I can shut up too. Uh, right. But the idea is like if I'm not there, if I'm off sick or if I'm just on vacation, that's when people are like, oh no, that's not working. Oh, this is not working. What happened? Oh, Tony's not here, right? So if I'm there, I'm invisible. I make art happen. I'm not an artist, but I admire artists. And that's one thing I will give a shout out to Brandon Kamek, who actually now works at Skywalker Sound, who used to be a euphonics technician at the time. So every time I had an issue with the euphonics console, I would call Brandon and we were doing a mix or recording. You will not know he was in the room until I stop my take and look around. He's waiting to service the machine, but no one knows he was even there. So I think I learned that from Brandon. I'll give him shout out on that.
That's a cool one. Yeah, so I suppose it's just being, ready to act whenever you need to, but it's sort of not necessary to be the front of the front of the stage there. You know what I mean? We're not there to as engineers in general. Actually, it's kind of our job to allow things to flow and make sense and work with the technology, so that the art can come through, and then sort of the technology should not be the front of your mind. So that's a really
Absolutely.
good way to put it. Your studio that you're in,
Aha. Yeah, this is I call this the Joy Lab. A
the
cheeky
Joy
name.
Lab.
It's a spare bedroom that is more an R&D thing. So it's a 714 room. I cannot move my laptop a lot. Sorry about
No,
that.
that's great.
It's a 714 room. It's powered by Audient Aurea interface and IK multimedia speakers in a 714 configuration, bass managed by the Aurea, tuned with SonarWorks. And I have a JBL, I believe it's 4312 SP. It's an older subwoofer, which is doing bass management for all the speakers and also LFE. Again,
That's incredible.
I don't do any major mastering or mixing in here anymore. It's mostly for research and development of sound particles products to create demo sessions, to experiment and break things before it hits our customers.
Yes. Okay. So I mean, that's a pretty hectic rig for just testing things. But I mean, like, so the MTM's there
Uh-huh.
from iLoud, the IK Multimedia. So how do you go with those? Do you like what are they? I've heard them, but I haven't heard them in an immersive array like that. So how does it work?
I think they're great. Again, I love the sound of it. And two things to keep in mind. One, you cannot beat physics, right? Physics is physics. These are smaller drivers, and I'm pretty sure the user manual states it goes below what not hertz, but physics being physics, I know those speakers cannot drive that much air and what frequency it cannot. So bass management is key. I cannot. So if you
Yep.
have that in place, then these are great. I got
Awesome.
them for a few reasons. One of them, as you can see, I have them literally screwed on to a wooden stick that cost me, I think, 50 cents per stick or something. And I literally put a double-sided screw and attach them to the stud on the ceiling. And then on the other side, I have a camera thread. So these speakers actually have built-in camera thread. That was one of the key reasons why I wanted to get them. The room is small enough. One, I didn't want to have big speakers cluttering my room, and two, I didn't want to spend too much money on just speaker mounting.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. So with the speaker mount, it's like a mic stand, the larger one thread. Is that what it
yes,
is?
the smaller one, the camera thread. So I think it's
Oh, the small one. Okay.
the smaller one. So again, those attachment cost me like $2 a piece versus like $100 per speaker for mounting, right? And then, like I said, I also like at the time these were the only ones that would come in white. I just wanted something that opens up the room because this is my office, it's my home office, right? So that's the reason why I went. And I also knew at one point I was going to get the SonarWorks to tune my rig. Again,
Mm.
that if you haven't tried it yet, you absolutely have to. And the fact that the Odeon guys put that tuning inside the box makes life so much easier.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, I watched all the videos on the Oreo. I think that's the next one I'm gonna get. I think because I'm not even using an Atmos integrated interface at all. I'm sort of using workarounds to make that happen, and that it works fine for now. But I think, yeah, if I was going to buy an interface, Oreo would be the one
Yeah,
because that's all integrated. The sound
exactly.
ID stuff.
Yeah, again, if it works, it works, right? Before that, I was powering the same rig using a Motu 24AO, which is just 24 analog outputs. The biggest downside was there was no master volume knob on that.
Right.
But
And no
then,
B chain or anything.
correct, yes. So this was surely an upgrade, and the newest toy or toys in the room is the Mech DSP APB box.
I saw you playing with that one. That's very interesting. Tell me about that.
So that is, so again, remember I mentioned I am that person who records everything through analog devices, right? So I used to have my lead microphone go through the euphonics mic pre, the limiter of the euphonics, the compressor, going into the first compressor of a manly mastering compressor, then going into the second one, then hitting the tape.
Wow.
Right? And I missed that because I was riding my euphonics. So the way I see it is people ask me, why can't you do that afterwards? Because it's in this day and age, you can do it. Of course I can, right? But then what I miss is the body language of the singer. Let me give you a good example. So let's say we have a singer who's singing something right now. I can, when she leans back from the mic, I know she's going to open up, right? I know that before she starts singing because I'm just seeing her lean back up. Then I pull the fader down just a notch. So I'm doing this almost like a pre-roll for my automation. I'm moving
Yeah,
things
wow.
before she sings. If I don't see her singing, if that is done, then once I have the take, I am reacting to what she has sung already. I cannot preemptively do those movements on the fader. So that's why I love that workflow. It's risky, yes. If you're not careful, you could have a good take ruined. It has happened twice to me, but out of the 100 times I've done that, it's only twice.
Yeah, that's not bad then, I suppose.
Right?
So are you talking about it's kind of like a natural on the fly compression that you're just kind of riding the fader as it happens.
You're riding the input of the compressor,
Okay, yeah, so you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
right?
That's really cool.
Yeah. So the reason why I mentioned this is I want that's a workflow I still miss a lot, right? It's almost impossible to do that with the S6. With the S5, you could. Pretty sure there's other consoles where you could do it. So with Mech DSP, what I have now is so it's a digitally controlled analog box. So I don't think I can explain it right. You would need Colin McDowell from McDSP himself because it's a genie in a box, right? So
Yeah.
there's no knobs or anything on the unit. It's a USB-C connection that comes to your machine, and you can get low latency. You can track with the box, and everything is analog inside, but it's controlled by plugin, so it's instantly recallable, which
Wow.
is, but most importantly for this podcast sake, as far as I understand, they make the possibly the only analog compressor and limiter that can be up to 916.
Oh wow. That's
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
Okay, so now you got my attention. Like, I mean, like if it wasn't cool enough before,
Uh-huh.
so let me just understand. I have seen it before, and I did see your post there talking about it. But so the idea of this thing it's a basically physical analog box that does the analog thing of could be any number of different functions like
Right.
preamps, compressors, whatever, and it's physically doing that like it would in a real box with the circuitry. But
Correct.
then because it's a computer controlling it, you can recall completely in like perfect, which is never the case in any analog gear,
Exactly.
and you can do that all digitally,
Hmm.
and it's Atmos compatible. That's blowing my
Yes.
mind.
And you can daisy chain them.
You can daisy chain them.
Yes. So I have 24 channels in my room right now. So I can have, so either you get a 8 channel unit, APB 8 or APB 16. So the number stands for the number of channels. So if you use
Right.
714, you already have lost that many channels with this one plugin. So you need to kind of budget for what you want to use. But things like that, and we will talk about sound particles, of course, like the products we make as well. These are the things that slowly leading the industry towards even more better spatial production.
These the APB boxes then. Is that what it
Uh-huh.
is? APB?
APB, analog processing box, I believe.
Cool. And it's the green one, right? Like
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. I think I remember a friend telling me about this a couple of years ago. How long have they been out?
I think I first purchased them for the composer I work for, Mr. A.R. Rahman, back in 2018. I think as soon as they came out, and I was like, I demoed it. I was like, okay, we need this. And he's like, why? I'm like, we need this. Uh,
We just
so,
do.
but again, I don't think I have golden ears, but I have decent ears. Usually when I try out a product, I'm like, okay, I can kind of hear the difference. Let's get it right. That's usually my response. This one, I'm like, holy smokes, can I hear the difference, right? It's day and night. It's not just
Yeah. Wow.
again, let me say something not controversial, but something that might be not a popular opinion. Tape, right? People love tape warmth and tape emulation. I don't mind them, but I don't have a nostalgic love relationship with tape. uh, Mostly because I've never used a tape machine in my life ever, right? Personally, I haven't used
Really?
a physical tape machine to splice tape and put the tape together. I never done that. So I appreciate what people did with it. When I listened to the ATR plugin, it is one of my favorite plugins ever from Universal Audio. I actually read the user manual not for the plugin but for the original machine to understand how it worked, and that was when I really understood how to use the plugin. Otherwise, I was just clicking random things that I don't even know what they do, right?
Yes. Right.
And that I could hear the difference. And now when you try the tape emulation that's built into APB, that's just completely different. Maybe people who have used tape might disagree. It might not sound the same, but to my ears it does something magical. I'm not saying it does tape, I'm just saying it does magic. Again, same with
Right.
so many other
Okay. That's
products,
very interesting.
like liquid
Well,
sonics reverb or sound particle stuff. We are not trying to emulate anything from the past. We're just trying to create something cool that sounds good.
yeah, which is again completely subjective and it's sort of depending on how people use it for what, and yeah, what kind of thing it is. So that's very valuable, I think.
Yeah,
Still,
and to add to that, I have a theory as to why people love tape or adding grit, right? Like plugins that bring the bitrate down. And you'll be like, wait, didn't we work so hard for decades to increase the bitrate and whatnot? Right? But we as humans love imperfection, right? And I think, again, this is just my opinion, but I feel what we love about tape or anything similar is how it makes music or sounds less sterile. Everything
yeah,
we record these days, we have so much dynamic range and headroom and frequency response and whatnot. We have the pristinest mics, gold plated pins and cables and whatnot. And one of the biggest pet peeves of mine is how we got socially conditioned by proximity effect. Okay, what I mean by that is when someone sings in a studio, more than often, the mic is right here to their lips. Yet, if that singer is sitting next to me in a chair, I'm not going to go and put my ears right next to her lips, right? So much so that if you had a singer in your room and sing to you without a microphone, it will sound weird because you're not used to their real voice anymore. So when you
yeah,
run a pristine up close mic vocals and then you produce it and bring them to the common medium of consumption, headphones, what happens? You have vocals that was recorded this close, delivered to right next to your eardrum. What's missing? The air, right? So much so that at Sound Particles, we actually released a plugin called Air that simulates just that. So if you look at the plugin, it looks like a very simple filter, right? If I set the distance knob, it looks like it's just cutting off some frequencies, but it is doing much more than that. You can actually change the temperature and humidity of the air. So this was originally built for sound design, cinematic sound design. So for example, if I had a helicopter sound like this one, you can pretty much make it sound like it's in Antarctica in summer, and that curve is different. So it's not just a passive filter, it's actually calculated based on mathematics and temperature and humidity factors,
wow,
right? So if you're working,
it's very
yeah, if you're
realistic.
working in post and you have a scene happening in London and you see rain, you can blindly set it to 100% humidity and set the temperature, and your synthesized sound design will sound very much like location sound because again it's simulating the air. coming back to the studio scenario, we also have a free version of this plugin called Air for Music. The main
I
difference,
think I have
yeah,
that.
the main difference is the other one does up to 20 miles of distance. This one does up to 500 feet because you don't want your drummer to be 20 miles away, right? I mean, some of them deserve to be 20 miles away. That's a different story. Just joking. But this one does up to 500 feet. And again, this is not a day and night difference, but if you put this in bypass, you might not hear the difference immediately. But if you have it on a complete session and you AB, you will suddenly feel like, oh, something just came alive. It feels like there's air and life back in the music.
Yeah.
So that's our philosophy here at Sound Particles. And again, our partners, like I said, our friends, colleagues from other companies like MechDSP and Liquid Sonics and every other company, Fab Filter, it takes a village to uplift artists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was really cool. So I've used the Music Air one before. Just back to Air real quickly, and some of the other plugins that you have, I don't know if I've actually had the chance to look at them yet. Obviously, Sound Particles itself, which we'll get to, I have now, which is really really exciting, and I would love to talk about a lot of that with you. But just yeah, while we're sort of on this, do you want to sort of give us an overview of some of the other plugins that you guys do then?
Absolutely. So let's start with the air. We have that helicopter sound, and let's say we want to sound like it's 1.6 miles. And once I start playback, I will actually use my mouse to change the distance. So we kind of have a simulation of distance, like it's moving farther or closer. But then the next thought we had was like, it's cool that a helicopter is moving back and forth, or you can pan, you have an instrument moving back and forth. Won't it be nice if you could also point and say, I want the helicopter to be here, or the brass section to be here or there? So we built an app for that. It's called Space Controller. So this is what the app looks like. And it has a companion app. So that's what the plugin looks like, my bad. And so this is what the plugin looks like. It's called Space Controller, and it has a companion app called Space Controller. And the moment you open it up, as long as you have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi permissions given on both the machines, it just connects to it. And once I touch it, now I can start using my phone to pan.
Oh wow.
So let's hear it in action. Right? So you can close your eyes and choose where the sound should be instead of focusing on speakers or a banner.
That's
That's the
insane.
idea.
So did this output? So obviously that's binaural right now, and I can feel that Doppler happening from both like the air and the actual placement within the binaural. But does it do other formats as well?
Absolutely. Let me open up a different version. There you go, multi-channel version.
Wow. Okay.
We support, I believe, a little over 30 formats, like 30. So, yeah,
Wow.
anything from stereo to binaural to 7.1, 5.12, 7.14, 9.16, Oro 11.1, IMAX 12,
Oh,
Sony
that's
360.
crazy.
I believe we might be the only plugin companies to actually make products that support Sony 360 as a format. NHK 22.2 for those of who you work in that format. Then up to sixth order ambisonics on both sides, meaning
Wow.
you can come in 916, come out 7.1, or come in 504 and then go out 22.2. We don't discriminate. We respect all the formats, but we also embrace all the formats.
So
We
it's
are a
it's really like its own
format
renderer. It's got like up mix and down mix sort of capability.
as a bed only. Yes, we don't do objects
Okay,
in
so my next
here.
question then is how are you getting to 9 or anything above the bed, which is so 914 would be above the bed.
Right. So at that point it becomes like almost like a playback functionality. like if you have a custom installation, or you are not using the Dolby Atmos renderer but using it for an installation workflow or a museum or something
Oh,
like
so
that.
they're discrete. Then it's just
Correct.
discrete channels, more
Yes,
than 10 that are the bed.
exactly.
Okay.
And so one, of course, you can pan. So if you go to the pan mode, you can use the mouse or the phone and place it anywhere you want, right? And you have two different views. So if you can have the top view and then do that, or of course you have advanced options to do auto height and all that cool stuff. But in addition to all that, you can also do a spin. So if I right click and change the perspective, I can now, well, this actually I misspoke. This is the spin. So now I can use my phone to spin a sound around
Oh my
the
goodness.
room without shearing it. So you might have a great textured guitar that you like the way it sounds. You just want to go whoop, whoop without shearing or mangling it. You can do that with the phone or with the mouse like that,
That's
right?
very cool.
And you can also mangle the sound intentionally if you wanted to. For whatever reason you want to bring the rear backs down and put them in the back, you can,
So can
right?
you automate all of this, like
Absolutely.
individual elements there?
Yes. So you just enable automation and just go whoop. That's it.
Yeah, that's full on, man.
Yeah, we don't mess around. Uh,
I love it. I think
right?
yeah, that would be so helpful for so many different things. Yeah,
Yeah.
particularly post production workflows. Um, just with all the different layouts, like you could use this to do so many things. So it's actually is it up mixing? Is that right? It actually is up mixing. So if I put like a stereo ambience in, and I can just make it 9.1 for
Right.
904 or something, for example.
Yes, we are using our own algorithms to do that. And that's our expertise, right? If you know, as you know, and we will talk about it in the standalone application, what we are known for is creating things in a three-dimensional space, micro and macro, right? Like this is the standalone, and real quick, I won't go too deep into this right now. But if you can see here, it says 5 yards. That's the size of each of these square scale right here,
Right.
right?
Yep. And this is sound particles, the app.
Correct. This is a standalone workstation called Sound Particles, right? When you look here now, it says 1 inch by 1 inch. That's a square size you look. So you can create a tiny soundscape, maybe an ant colony for ants movie or something, insects. That's tiny. Then you can also zoom out and create something as big as 2 miles in radius or 10,000 miles in radius,
Big
right?
things.
Big
Like
things like
planetary bodies, things like that.
yeah,
You can go crazy
exactly.
with it.
Dune Part 5, maybe, right? But that's our expertise. We are the masters of creating spatial things at scale. So we use the same brain power to create these plugins. And don't take my word for it, but I would like to think it sounds pretty good.
I can concur with that. Yeah, for sure. Like just exploring sound particles a little bit. Um, yeah, it blew my mind, man. It blew my mind.
Thank you. And one more thing I want to show you is the reason why I open Nuendo is so we actually have a deeper integration with the Nuendo's built-in panner. So this is the Nuendo panner. This is not our plugin. It's based on OSC, so you have to set it up once using the studio setup, I believe. And once you set up OSC, we have this. It's the same name, but the logo looks different. It's called Space Controller OSC.
Okay.
So if you have that, then you can use our app to pan the objects and beds in Nuendo natively
Wow.
using our phone. Yeah, this one there's no physics law. I mean, there's a panel logic, but that's it. If there's a
Okay.
binaural, that's done by Nuendo. We are just controlling the panel using the phone. That's it. Instead of using the mouse
Okay.
to move
Right. I
it
see what you're
around.
saying. So yeah, it's to have the phone app and move that around integrated with the renderer here.
Yes, it's
That's
to give
cool.
you the ability to close your eyes and use your ears, so you can have the phone right, and you can just go, "Oh, that sounds better."
Yeah, that's key, isn't it?
That is key, right? And the same OSC app has, of course, it supports a Nuendo, like I showed you, but we also support a Spat Revolution and Lisa systems. So if you're mixing a live concert, you can stand in the middle of the room and connect to your Lisa system and just pan the sounds using Space Controller. So It's the same family of apps. It's two different iPhone apps. One is free for the plugin. This one is a different price point, but available on the App Store. So that's Space Controller.
Space controller. Cool. I'm gonna have to get that one. That's really really cool.
Cool.
Is there? I think there was another one that you mentioned to me one time before this. I forget what it was called.
Energy Panner, possibly. That's a
Yeah, that might have been it.
So Energy Panner is one of the most unique plugins in the market. More often than not, what we don't make another EQ or another compressor, right? I think there's enough compressors and EQs out there. I'm not saying there's not room for innovation, but it's a nearly saturated market in my opinion. And we, especially in the spatial side of things, again, the sound designer I was talking to earlier, he was actually saying, hey, it's good that suddenly I have my space. It was nice, I could move everything in the beginning when I got into Atmos, but now two things happens. He said, one, it's tedious to move every single track. It takes time because the novelty has gone off.
Yeah.
Two, even if it takes so much time, frustratingly enough, it does not sound real, right? So it's a two-factored catch 22, and he said that's why he loves this plugin. So let's talk about what does this plugin do. This is dynamic panning based on loudness, just like how a singer with good miking technique will lean back before she really goes loud. This plugin kind of simulates that. So first things first, you will see parameters like threshold and ratio and attack and release that you would traditionally see in a compressor, but I want to clarify this plugin does not do any compression. Threshold determines at what point it should start panning.
Right.
Ratio, how much should it pan along this dotted line, which you can move, of course. You can start from the speakers, or you can say start here and then go along this line as it gets louder. Threshold, when it should start moving. Ratio, how much it should move along this line. Attack and release, how fast and how slow. That's it, right? So if I have this piece, it's moving pretty fast. I can make it slower, right? I can start at the speakers and have it go around my head without the plugin, right?
Okay. Stationary.
So that's the core concept. Then, of course, you can choose to have it go in circles or start at the speakers and end at a line or whatnot, right? You can
Yeah.
also randomize and say, I don't know what to do with it. Give me an idea. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. So I just showed you that example just to showcase what the plugin can do. Some of the most powerful things I've done with this plugin would look like two things I will show you. Even in stereo, this does amazing things. I know it looks like it don't even move pretty much, but with vocals. So let's go back to in the very beginning. I was telling you how I we could potentially talk about this slide, right? The psychology behind sound and whatnot. Do you mind if we quickly go over that? Then I can explain the
Absolutely.
plugin again.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Absolutely do that.
Right. So as humans, yeah, there's this story of invisible gorilla. So these slides are from a webinar I did for Sound Particles a couple of years ago, right? And have you heard about the story at all, of the invisible gorilla from Harvard?
I haven't. No. Please do tell.
Okay, so I'm ruining it for you now. Okay, so this won't work on you anymore. There's a YouTube video that you can look up, but like I said, it won't work on you.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, big time. But there's no other way to explain it, sadly. So my condolences. The experiment was very simple. These group of people were passing balls around to each other, and as an observer, as a participant, you had one job to count how many times the ball was passed between this one specific team. So you were asked to count the number of times they were passing to each other within that one team of people wearing white t-shirts, right? That was your
Right.
task. While you are counting, a person wearing a gorilla suit walks in dead front and center of the screen, thumps their chest, and walks away from the screen. You would think you would see that. Majority of the participants don't. You will now because I ruined it for you. Sorry again.
No,
But
that's okay. Okay, so why is it that they don't see it?
because our brain has a very thin focused attention, visually, sonically, olfactory, everything. This is why there. I mean, there are so many examples we can discuss for days. But another crazy example they did was they would make blindfold you, then they would make you smell. I believe it was apple, then feed you pineapple, and you would think what you tasted was actually what you smelled. Right. So
Interesting.
same with our focus. We have a very thin focus. Another great example is the cocktail effect, right? Which you might have heard about if you're at a pub or a bar, you can only focus on one conversation, on one person's voice, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how hard you try. So if you look at someone far away, then suddenly you will ignore, you will still hear other voices, but you're focusing on that person only. Right? So this is called inattentional blindness or selective attention. It's brain's strategy to save energy and to be efficient. Most habits are on an autopilot. That's why sometimes you drive back home and you don't remember a thing about the drive because your brain was on autopilot. It knows it's done this so many times, it doesn't have to waste time being 100% focused, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people would have experienced something like that for sure.
Right? And so are non sounds. We ignore non sounds all the time. Great example, your own heartbeat.
Yeah, sure. Yep. If you listen enough, you can absolutely hear that. So it's there all the time.
Right? And you only hear it only if it goes very slow or very fast. That's when your brain is like, uh-oh, something is not right. Right? So that brings us to brain's autopilot strategy. So the idea is very simple. To save energy, ignore predictable and ongoing sounds. Heartbeat, tick tock of a clock, right? If you have a TikTok clock in your home, you are used to it. Your guests might go crazy for the first night until they get used to it. Car engine sound when driving, you don't focus on it until again something starts clicking or clanking and something is wrong. There are exceptions. Any sound that moves immediately grabs our attention for a split second, just until our brain decides is it a safe sound or is it a threat.
Right, I see. So yeah, it would come from the evolution of there's a predator lurking and they're about to pounce. So if it's moving sound, it's not the environment, and get out of there. Makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. But brain has evolved to be even more smarter, so it will focus on that sound, but only for a split second. The moment it's decided, oh, it's safe sound, it ignores it again. Because
Right.
firing these novelty detector neurons is what they are called. It takes energy. So these neurons will start firing again if the sound changes any of these qualities: pitch, loudness, duration, or the most important for this podcast, spatial location. If something moved behind me in a natural habitat, again, like we just agreed, it could be a predator.
Yeah.
So, this is why if you look at any of the major mixers Pro Tool sessions, you will notice the automations lines are never left alone. I've had mixed techs confuse and come and tell me like, do you think that mixer is just leaving their fingers on the fader because there's automation in every single track, but they're not moving anything? And it baffled me for a while too. But what they are doing intentionally or unintentionally is they're nudging the faders just enough to make the brains hook on that sound for that split second. Then they let go.
Yeah, that
Make
makes sense.
sense?
Yep. Yep.
So
I do that
this
all the time. I didn't understand why, but that's absolutely something.
right. So this is why any good mixers automation lanes will look not as crazy as this, but you get the idea. There will never be a pure straight line all the time. We automate for this very reason, even if we don't know it. So coming back to the plugin, this is why this makes such an impact. What this something like this will do is it simulates head movement for a singer. Usually, when you have an artist in a booth and when they sing, they don't stand still and sing, right? They always move around. They lean back, they lean to the side based on the music, they react to the music. And you lose all that movement the moment you record them in mono with one mic.
Right, of course. Yeah, because there's no way to discern which side it was. It's one place.
Right.
Yeah.
If you recorded that in stereo or in spatial, then you're good, but more than often we don't. Right now it's becoming more
Yeah.
popular, but let's be realistic. Everything is recorded in mono and then spatialized. This is why at Sound Particles we also have a philosophy that everything needs to be created in spatial from the very first note, played or sang. So what this plugin does in this setting is simulate that micro head movement from a mono source based on loudness. Okay, this can be in stereo. So this is not jumping things left and right. It's just adding that sense that, oh, I feel like that person is actually in front of me. Works really, really well on podcasts and narration stuff as well, because it feels like someone is actually reading to you in front of you and not a steady dead voice in front of you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can sort of maybe approximate this quickly now. So, for example, if I do this, this should sound a tiny bit different than
Hmm.
this. Part of it is the microphone picking up mainly from here, but it's also just how my voice is hitting the walls in different ways, right? And which sort of
Right.
thing it is. If you're in the room, then you would hear that slightly differently, but you kind of tune out to that. But this is kind of bringing that sense of realism back to something that's
Yes.
otherwise just me pointed directly at the microphone. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so it's way more realistic then as to how we really hear it,
Yes.
rather than it
And
being perfectly clinical in the microphone here.
exactly. And in a spatial music setting, you could do something like this and reverse the direction. What this will do is whenever she sings soft, she will come towards you a little bit. And when she sings loud, she's going to lean back. That's one thing. Then, of course, like I was saying earlier, you can do this in spatial, right? So you can have like a taiko drum kit just coming towards you as it gets louder, or the other way around. Everything becomes, it's reacting to music. That's a key thing here. It's not just a BPM based random panning, because then our brain also knows, oh, it's a pattern, ignore it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. It's the random thing that makes it realistic.
Yeah, and micro movements, like it doesn't have to be jumping back and forth, the small things. So we decided to take this to yet another level, as if this wasn't good enough. You can side chain this plugin with another signal. Now, why would you want to do that, huh? Let's take a look. A whole new world. That's where we'll be. That's where we'll be. A thrilling chase. A wondrous place for you. You get the idea. The vocals are the dead center, both of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. It just sounds like they sang in a studio, and they did, which is fine. I can pan them left and right, leave them there, or I can kind of automate. It still won't sound like they were on stage. If they're singing a solo piece, more than likely they will come towards the center, whoever's singing the solo piece, right? When the other person starts singing, they will take a few steps to the side, kind of balance themselves out visually and sonically.
Yep.
So anytime this person does a solo, they come to the center, and then you know the dance, right? It's a human mutual respect thing towards another human being.
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
want I wanted to simulate that. So what I'm doing here is, this is the female lead vocals and this is the male lead vocals. With the female lead vocals, I'm side chaining her panning plugin with his vocals. So what happens now is, anytime she sings by herself, she's going to stay in the center. Every time he starts singing, depending on how loud he sings, he's going to push her towards this direction, right? And whenever he stops, based on the attack and release, she's going to slowly glide back to the center again.
You've blown my mind again, mate.
And vice versa, right? So she's going to push him only when she sings, otherwise, he's going to come back to the center. So let's hear what that sounds like. A whole new world. That's where we'll be. A thrilling chase. A wondrous place for you. You get the idea.
I do. Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, you could do so many cool things with that. Um, I'm just trying to think of like how I might use something like that for all kinds of things. Like, yeah, you could do it
Yeah.
with competing guitar riffs and things like that
Yes.
that overlap, and then you want it to
No
just be
more
in
pumping.
the main lead kind of thing.
We have customers who use it a lot with drums and bass, actually. So instead of ducking the levels of the bass or the drums, they actually sonic. The term we tend to keep hearing a lot is sonic displacement. You are not ducking the levels, you're just moving things sonically to make space for something and then bringing it back naturally, like it glides back.
Yeah.
So many examples, right? Music examples. Let's say you have a choir or a string section in the front in an Atmos mix. You can sidechain that if the brass stabs, so every time the brass comes in, the strings glides to the sides to make space and then just glides back in again. Sound design, again, so many things you can do. Let's say this is a swarm of bees in a sound design scene, an explosion happens. You can sidechain energy panel with the explosion so that the bees flies away and then comes back once the explosion settles.
Oh wow. So it's all sort of dynamic and automated. That's just insane.
Yes.
Normally you'd have to automate that completely, individually any other way.
And it won't sound real.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's the sidechain workflow in Energy Panel uses the psychological tricks of, moving things slightly to get the brain's attention, but it also naturally brings back things to the normal thing, like to what the other sound designer was telling me. Like he said, with Energy Panel, one, he doesn't have to spend so much time doing things that doesn't work. Like spending time is one thing, but if it doesn't work at the end of the day, what's the point, right?
Absolutely.
So this makes it easy, but it also makes it sound good.
Oh, it sounded great. Yeah. No, I think that it would be so fun to explore that because you could do so much, and it's sort of a different way to think. It is, I guess, unlearning the way we traditionally do things, and I suppose spatial in itself is kind of like that,
Yeah.
because it's like we've always had to carve space out for stereo, and now it's actually really not about that. It's finding the right placement for something so that everything can coexist, and there's enough space now in Dolby Atmos and other surround formats. So with something like this that makes that even more dynamic, and feel like it's still cohesive and blended together to fit at all times now because it's time based. That's
Yes.
pretty important.
Yeah, you can also, another great thing is like the vocal example. Once you set the right settings, you can keep adding more takes. You don't have to do any more automation. They're going to keep reacting to each other. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You don't have to replace or copy. There's no automation. All this is real time
Yeah,
panning.
that's the huge thing.
I had one instance where a customer told me he's a classical composer, and he said he uses this actually when he's recording orchestra. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, the latency isn't bad. I'm like, I'm not complaining. I'm curious why you use it when you're recording. And he said, oh, some of my brass players want only their instrument on the left side when they play, and everything else open up after that. So he uses that for.
Wow, that's
So,
cool. In real
right?
time as recording, that's
Yeah.
insane.
I haven't tested it myself, but I am told the latency wasn't bad, so I take his word for that.
That's excellent.
That Yeah, so
Wow.
that's Energy Panner. We also make a similar plugin called Brightness Panner. Same concept, but instead of using loudness to pan, you use frequency to pan. Oh, actually, did forget one thing about Energy Panner and Brightness Panner that I forgot to show you. So remember, there's two tabs at the top. One says pan, one says sliding.
Ah,
In the
yes.
in the pan mode, the dotted line basically acts as the start and the end point. So now it's starting here. As it gets louder, it will go towards this line. Then it will come back as it gets softer. Right?
Okay.
In the sliding mode, you will see how the dotted line is opened up. It will start flowing this way, but will keep going on even after us. It won't go back along the line. So I can play something just to showcase that part. Right? It just keeps going back and forth.
Yep. Okay.
In the sliding mode, I'm just going to make it faster so we can see it moving on.
Oh wow.
So that's the two different modes in the panel.
Yeah. Okay. So one's like sort of continuing forward, and the other one's sort of stretching out, in and out,
Yeah,
or along one line forwards backwards. So that's
correct.
cool. I think the sliding one would be really interesting to play with as well because
Yeah,
you can do some very creative stuff with that.
especially
Um,
with high perk. I love it.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my goodness.
tambourines
I'm
and
gonna have to
things
try
like
all of
that.
this stuff because this is the kind of thing that separates a project. Pretty
Cool,
cool.
thank you. So, yeah, I'm glad you're inspired. So, the next one is called Brightness Banner. Same concept, but panning based on pitch, brightness, or incoming MIDI notes. So you can even wire it to a where you say, I'm going to play an arpeggio, I want all the high notes, high octaves to go towards the back. And while you play, it will happen real time, right? Right now, in this specific demo, I have a audio file right here. I'm using the brightness mode and I have it in sliding mode so it can just keep moving around because that's also my favorite mode. So without the plugin, this is what it sounds like. Now with the plugin. Comes to life, right?
Okay. So the higher the pitch there, the more it was moving out sort of from the circle in the middle there. And then the lower the pitch, the closer it was.
And you can set the lowest pitch. So you can say anything below 350 hertz or 660 hertz doesn't move it. So if I made it high enough, you will notice it won't move as much. See, now it's not moving.
Yeah. So it's not just where it is, it's the fact that it's moving at all as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Yeah,
you can set
that's
a
cool.
pitch and say anything below C3 does not trigger the panning.
Oh, okay.
So that's brightness spanner again. In all these spanners, we support pretty much any format you can think about. 914, 916, 714, of course, up to 6th order ambisonics.
You can use this for
For
games, all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. Again, we are the masters of micro movements with these plugins. So that was brightness spanner. The next one I'm going to show you is called density. So
Density.
this is a chorus plugin built, chorus-like plugin. I don't like to call it chorus, but it does much more than that. It's a plugin that does similar things to chorus and more, built from the ground up for spatial. So you can
Right.
come in stereo and come out 714 and whatnot. It has 3 tabs, a basic tab, you have a small ensemble or a large ensemble, then you choose if you want to add bass or not, and you're done. Detune mode, which gives you some more parameters and controls, so delay range, grain size, dynamic range, position divergence, voice speed, so forth and so on. And the multi-pitch mode, where you can add new slots for harmony. So you can say this one should create 2
Oh my
octaves
god.
up to 25 particles of harmonies, and how much level you can mute and solo. So up to this many slots, and let's play you some stuff. Hearing is believing, right?
Yeah, I have so many questions.
Yeah, so let me bypass the plugin. This is the original brass sample I'll be using for this demo. And with the plugin, imagine this in 714. I have one more example if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a vocal example. This is the original vocals by an amazing composer and artist from India by the name Nakul. And here's Nakul's voice. And with density.
Whoa. I was gonna
Pretty cool,
say
right?
that the voice, that could be a huge cool thing for the voice, and the fact that it's in particles there as well. That's really interesting. That you can really do anything you want with that. I was thinking of it like you can build a choir, from a couple of voices and make that sort of really big and set each person where they are, on the stage there, or whatever. But you can really do anything with this.
Absolutely. You can even choose the grain type and say you want it to be playing forward or reverse or both.
Wow, okay.
Of course, you can change the grain size and tweak it. Right. So you can do so much, like you said. It's, yeah, your limit, imagination is the only limitation, if you will.
Yeah. I wonder if you have an example of, so, say, one person singing something like that, and then making it sound like there's 10 people.
No, so we took ethical and a moral decision not to do that because we want more singers to sing.
Okay,
Uh,
that's fair. That's fair.
right?
Very valid.
Again, this is not supposed to, even the example I just played you, right? It's doing something that we cannot do in the natural world. Like you cannot get this sound even if you had this many people. So this is doing 10, like 40, like almost 60 particles, right? Even if you had 60 people, it's almost, not almost, it's impossible to get this exact sound. So this is kind of doing something that complements human creativity. So to answer your question, no, we don't have anything that can take one voice and make it realistically sound like 1,000 or 200 people.
No, well, that's okay. Look, that's a very valid point, though. You sort of, yeah, you don't want to replace human beings making art. Yeah, the idea is to enhance and do something a little bit different with it. So, no, I love that. It's a really good answer to that question.
Well, thank you. So that was density, and of course, it has an XY pad that you can assign anything to. So you can assign grain size or voice speed, or you can assign dynamic range and then kind of mess with it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is super powerful. All of these plugins have pretty much complete, you know, access to pretty much any format that we do use these days, and
Yes.
well into the future as well with Dolby Atmos formats, which is insane.
Yes.
What
And
have we got
the
here?
next thing we make is in delay. This is the newest addition to our family of products. It's a delay plugin again built from the ground up for spatial. So it has three tabs. In the channels mode, you will see the number of channels of the input. So this is going in stereo and coming out 714 or whatnot. So you will see stereo in here. If I had the same plugin on that multi-channel input and it happens to be 7.1, you will see all those channel inputs right here. Right, so that's
Cool.
this channels tab, and what it does is pretty cool. So let me go back to the other one. So for the left channel, you can sync to BPM if you want to, right? The usual stuff. You can change the delay or the tempo based delay. You can change the feedback and the volume using the three different knobs, or you can just click this and drag it around and all those knobs will change dynamically, right? So you
Okay.
can
Wow,
actually
that's
do,
interesting.
can do that, right? And if you add feedback, so right now I have, for this channel I have feedback, and you can see the feedback just growing
Yeah,
right
yeah.
here. That it shows the number one because there's only one feedback tab. So all the feedback tap 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 tap, it's going to be exactly in that position throughout.
Right.
But you can also have up to four different tabs and tap patterns per channel. So I can say I want that feedback to go tap 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 tap. I can place it where I want it to be in space.
That's cool. I've actually
In,
built, manually that sort of thing before, so that's very interesting. You
yeah,
could just do it straight
in three
away.
seconds. Yeah. And you can have it static, or you can say, I want them to move around slowly, maybe, right? Like that. It will, the tabs will
I
move
have
around.
not done that. That's insane.
And remember the air plugin we spoke about earlier? It is
Yes.
built in here. So you can actually have up to 1,000% air. So it will feel like the tabs are moving through air.
Wow, you're blowing my mind on every one of these, mate. Yeah, I don't know what
Thank you.
if this is your intention, but yeah, pretty much all of these things that you're showing us here, these are all extremely advanced,
Thank you.
very impressive tools. So
Oh,
thank you again, just for jumping on and showing us all of this. I suppose
absolutely.
keep going by all means, but just wanted to say that before we kept going.
Thank you. So you can have air, or you can have three band EQ, or you can have a filter, right? Depending on what you want to do. And this is only the beginning. So For this channels mode right now, I only have left and right, and I can have two different tap patterns for both of them, right? So
Yeah.
this can be tapping like that, and I can have a filter in here and air EQ for the second channel, two different things. Or I can link them and say I want air to be on both. Same with movement, you can link all the movement and say I want everything to move in small circles like that, right? So everything will move just like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you can do speed there.
Right. So now that was the channels mode. So you see how many of the channels you have on this side, and you basically create delay taps from the input channels. The next tab is the taps mode. This is where it gets really, really, really fun. So let me turn off everything just to give you an idea. So you get up to 16 discrete taps. Okay.
Okie doke.
Let me also open up the other one once again just to show you. So if I was in a 7.1 mode, each tap will show you all the input channels of the 7.1 signal. This is almost like a mini summing mixer inside the plugin. So you can say tap 1 should have the sum of left, right, and center only, left, rear, surround as well. And that becomes the input signal for this one tap, the sum of these specific channels.
Right, okay.
Then of course you can, sync it to BPM and set your feedback and whatnot. You can have it rotate, of course, add some delay taps. So we have 3 taps for that one tap. So for every single tap, you get up to 4 more feedback taps, and you can have 16 of them.
So just so I understand it, we're talking about the input here. So if it's a 5.1 thing,
Yes,
whatever's on the left channel or the right channel here, that's what's going to that placement within the
that tap.
delay only. Okay, yeah.
Correct. Only for that tab. And the tab 2 can have maybe right and center. Tab 3 can have all of them except for LFE for whatever reason. And each tab gets up to 4 feedback taps. So it's 16 times 4 delays you are getting. Yeah, so
For
4
every
times
tap.
16, yeah, for 4 per
Yeah,
tab.
wow.
And then of course you also have the particles mode where you can have up to 100 particles to create like a very ethereal sound. Then of course we also make a synthesizer which happens to be spatial. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Love that. Okay, so do you have a MIDI keyboard there you can show us or something?
Yeah, I can. So first question, have you seen this before? Do you know about this, or is this your first time?
I have heard of it, but I think I might have seen a video from Sound Particles in the past doing
Okay,
something with this, but I have not heard it, or yeah, I feel like this is a pretty much a brand new thing for me. So feel
oh,
free to just start from the start.
absolutely. So first things first, as far as we understand, this is the only virtual instrument that can exist in an Atmos setting. What I mean by that is if I create an instrument track in, let's go 914, for example. There is no other VI that can exist in that specific format. So this is not a
Right.
stereo instrument right now. It's a 914 instrument. So that's the first thing to note. So if I were to play a key on this one, as you can see, it's spitting out signal to every single output.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Right, and I will explain how it works, but this is very important to know. The very first note you play is in spatial. So it's called Skydust. It is a synthesizer, of course, with 8 oscillators. So again, there's a randomizer, right? So you can actually say, I don't know what patch to use, give me an idea. It will randomize. Ooh, I actually like that. But let's say I didn't like it, right? I like the sound, but I don't like the way it's moving. I can use this drop down and lock the pitch and the timbre. Now, when I click the randomizer, it's going to randomize only the arpeggiation and the spatial. So,
Oh, that's cool.
right? Now I kind of, okay, I changed it by mistake, but I was kind of like digging it. Oh, it's back. Now I can lock the arpeggiation because I like the arpeggiation, but I don't like the pitch and the timbre anymore, right? So I can go back and roll the dice again, right? I don't like that. No. So you can just so you can start rolling the dice, then lock the things you like and unlock things you don't, and keep going, and then you can go in and tweak it to make it yours. With the pitch tab, let's say I have it off, I play a note like C, you hear a C, right? I can turn the global pitch mode on and I'm saying start 2 octaves down and glide up to this note I'm playing in this much time, and you get that. So that's a pitch of every oscillator, right? I
Yeah.
can also say I want a different pitch behavior for each oscillator. So this one should start all the way down, this one should start all the way almost 2 octaves up, and so forth, and you get this. The deep note. Ta-da!
It's like a movie production title. I love it.
Yeah.
That's
So
so cool.
so what happened is we did not take the deep note and move it around you. What we are doing is we are creating the sound from the ground up with each oscillator coming towards you from around you. So we are opening up the sound and putting you in the smack middle of it. It cannot be done any other way with stems or whatnot. And the next tab, this is where we
Yeah.
both are
Yeah,
excited
this
and
is the
passionate.
part I'm going to love the most,
Spatial.
probably. You know me
Yeah,
well.
very simple bare bones operation. You can say oscillator 1 should be here, oscillator 2 should be here, 3 should be somewhere here. Even in stereo, this will make the sound big and thick,
Yeah.
right? So, right, even if I did this, it sounds spatial enough. So even like this, it sounds much bigger and not flat anymore. Okay, so now let's quickly revisit what we spoke about the brain a few minutes ago, the micro movements, right? What this slider does is it's opening up a window of randomization for micro movements. So you are saying oscillator 1 needs to be in the front, but it can move around a little bit in that perimeter. Oscillator number 3 can be anywhere in the room randomly. Oscillator number 2 can move a bit more, but only in this perimeter. And you will hear the difference. Let me pull it all back. Once I start playing, I will slowly increase the sliders and you will hear the difference. Ready?
Huge.
Right? So again, micro movements built in. So if you're playing a chord, it will actually kind of behave like a living, breathing organism movement.
I could definitely feel that open up as soon as as soon as you played that, it was like, okay. It's no longer static and for lack of a better word, in comparison, boring, and then it sort of just comes alive, you know what I mean?
Yep. So that was the easiest, simplest way to do that, right? Then, when I opened up the synth, you were saying how we use envelope generators to shape the sound, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We are letting you choose the envelope generator to shape the panning of the sounds. So let me keep it simple. I can say globally, everything should start in the front, no randomization. I want it to start in the center and attack taking this much time and attack towards the rear back with some randomization, sustain to the front again, then release to the back. And you get that. And you can do this per oscillator. You can use envelope generators and LFOs to dictate panning.
I'm running out of descriptive words. All I've got is wow and oh my god. This is really, really exciting. You could spend hours just, doing amazing things just in here.
Thank you. So the last two things I want to show you about this synthesizer is one, the arpeggiation tab. So of course, you have the basic option to arpeggiate, all that, change the speed. You can also sequence notes, right? So you can actually click in notes. You can even do polyphonic notes. You can play chords if you wanted to. But what you will appreciate the most is you can actually step sequence 3D panning. So you can have the notes and the panning, or you can say, I don't want to arpeggiate the notes. I only want to arpeggiate the panning, the filter frequency, FM frequency. You can just keep adding parameters. You can add as many as you want. This will keep adding more pages for you. You can also add more steps. So you can step sequence panning, you can step sequence frequency. Last but not the least, you can also use the matrix to wire things to spatial stuff. Meaning, I can say this knob actually does the spatial elevation for everything. So if this knob goes up, everything goes up, right?
Okay.
And in the simplest form, you can assign this to a modulation wheel. So your modulation wheel becomes height for
Okay,
anything
so
you're
yeah,
playing.
see it says macro there. So it's assignable. You can do
It's
whatever you want with
assignable,
that.
but it can also control multiple things. So it can control the filter frequency, the reverb, wet and dry, the delay, and the height all at the same time at different ratios too if you wanted to. So you can see the curves here, right? But imagine this. What if instead of the modulation wheel, you can assign this to aftertouch on your keyboard? So if you're playing something, then you press down further on the keys, everything starts going up. If you use any of the newer MPE compatible keyboards like the Osmos, you can actually use MPE information. So your X, Y, and Z data can trigger filters or arpeggiation or panning. So once you set this synthesizer to the way you want it, then you just start creating music. There's no panners involved. The way you play the keys becomes your panning.
Yeah, there's no need to mix. It's already built in like that. Yeah.
You're creating in spatial.
I love that. And that's actually maybe an interesting overlap just with a lot of musicians are starting to think about it like that, which is maybe just let's quickly discuss that. So there's been this sort of way of doing it where people they have their stereo track and then they will be remixing it in Dolby Atmos or
Mhm.
whatever other format. And so yeah, we sort of take the stereo and rebuild it, try and make it work for the spatial. But then I think the way that people are going to be starting to make this stuff will be starting in Atmos, and then the stereo comes as a re-render from that. And I really like that approach. I think I prefer doing it that way.
We all do, right? If you think back to how music started, we never had musicians lined up against a wall in a studio room, right? But
Yeah,
that's how stereo sounds like. Stereo sounds like we have all the musicians flat against the wall.
yeah,
Don't get me
exactly.
wrong, I appreciate the depth that amazing mixers create, right, in stereo. But it still sounds as if everything is coming from the wall because it literally is coming from the wall, two speakers. But
Yeah.
what spatial music and audio brings back is the ability to imagine musicians were actually in a room playing together, having fun, right?
Yeah, it's
And
another dimension, like in more than one way of thinking of dimensions, because there's literally more dimensions. But then also another whole thing, another whole dimension to making music.
and anyone who's been in a band will confirm this. More than often, when you rehearse, you are rehearsing in a circle
Yeah,
because you want to make eye contact. You are jamming with another person. It's music is energy, right? So you need to make eye contact, you need to see someone. So when someone tells me guitar doesn't sound natural coming from the back, I'm like, depends on what you're used to,
yeah, absolutely.
right? So spatial music, I think in my opinion, brings back or sets music free or unleash sets it free from the chains it was bound to on the wall, for it to become how it always was naturally, oftentimes in a circle around a fireplace as in a band formation. uh, so again, that's just my biased opinion on
No,
music
I
and
I
spatial.
completely agree with you. I think it's revolutionary what we're doing, now with music and everything that Sound Particles is doing is really going to the next level there. And I think I think I said it on the last time we spoke that it was it's very much the front of the industry here. This is like crazy stuff that's blowing my mind, and I'm not new to this. Like it's not it's
Thank you,
really really
Dan.
cool.
Thank you. So that's pretty much all the plugins we make.
Cool, man. Look, I appreciate your time taking me through all of the sound particle stuff. So many cool plugins, so many fun things to explore. I can't wait to have a look at all of them. Particularly the last one, Sky Dust. That's some next level fun to be had. So anyone who's
Thank you.
watching this, absolutely go check out Sound Particles. Thank you, Tony, for jumping on. Make sure you guys check out the Sound Particles specific bonus episode that will be coming out very soon with Tony back with us. Thanks again, man, for jumping on.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate what we're doing for the industry. And here's to hoping, we have more and more people creating in spatial music and sound design. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. This was so much fun. Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. We'll see you very soon.
See you soon.
See you at the next one. Thanks for listening to Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. If you like what you heard, check out some of our other episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and YouTube. And be sure to look out for more exciting guests very, very soon. See you there.